I'll help her with the parts she's stuck on. Like this? When she types on the keyboard, the program starts as expected. Exactly. I snap my fingers in excitement. Alright. Let's move on to the next. Suddenly, her hand touches mine. I haven't asked your name yet. Startled by her sudden question, I get flustered. Oh, me? As I try to evade the question, she was. My name is John. I'm 34 years old. I was going through visitor procedures at the reception of a manufacturing company's headquarters. The receptionist seems to be informed and looks at me with a knowing glance. Escaping that gaze, I quickly finish the procedures and head to the CEO's office via the elevator. After talking with President Michaels, I was given permission to look around the floors, so I decided to casually explore each one. Everyone looks my way, but because I'm wearing a mask due to allergies. But I have on a visitor badge, so they only give me a quick glance. Thinking I'm someone's guest. Everyone is working seriously. One department is smoothly communicating, chatting amicably while still working efficiently. Another department seems busy and focused, working intensely on their computers. I mentally note the characteristics of each department. On the third floor, I felt a sense of unease for the first time since coming to this company. This department was the type to work intensely on their computers. The sign read IT department. They must handle the company's system-related tasks here. Among those silently working on their computers, the source of my unease was near the window. I approached and spoke to the person there. What are you doing? The woman I spoke to flinched and turned to face me. She was a petite woman. I'm making flowers out of paper. As she said that, she glanced behind her. I also looked in the direction she indicated. There was a sign with the company's name on it. We have an event soon to promote our products to clients. The sign is plain, so I thought I'd decorate it to make it more eye-catching. I understood what she was doing. But my unease remained. Are you doing this alone? It would be faster with a few people. To avoid disrupting the tense atmosphere, I asked her quietly. She looked troubled. I don't have any work I can do right now, she said, dejectedly. I frowned. Glancing at her name badge, I saw it read IT Department, Sarah Johnson. While the rest of the IT team seemed busy on their computers, why did she have no work? Seeing my silence, she explained further. I transferred here from a regional branch, but the programming language used here is different, and with the event coming up, there's no time to teach me. It was clear that we should avoid idle chatter during work hours. She seemed to understand that too, keeping her explanation brief, but I got the gist of it. What language do you use here? Her answer reassured me. In that case, I can help. How about I teach you after work? At my suggestion, she vigorously shook her head. No way. I can't impose on someone from another company like that. She seemed to have misunderstood because I was wearing a visitor badge. Oh, no, I'm actually from this company. I just returned from a branch office and I'm on a week's leave. I came to the office today for some paperwork. There's no problem with me teaching a colleague, right? I said this with a smile, though I wasn't sure it was visible through my mask. She looked down and shook her head. No, it would be a burden, and during your break. I hesitated, thinking it might seem too pushy, but I couldn't leave someone in need. I'm enjoying my time off during the day, so I'm free at night. But if you don't need help, that's fine. Though it looks like you really want to work. She looked up at me, startled. Then, with trembling lips, she managed to say, as long as it's not too much trouble. I would appreciate it. Her hesitant reply showed she was still unsure. I smiled gently and nodded. All right, after work, do you know the community center nearby? There's a study room there. Her eyes widened at my suggestion. Since she didn't say anything, I continued. Do you know the place? I'll be there reading for the rest of the day, so if you want to learn, come by after work. With that, I left the floor. It hasn't changed much, or maybe it's gotten a bit older? I stood in front of the community center, lost in thought. I had spent a lot of time here since I was a student. It had a large library and study rooms divided into private cubicles, with rooms for group study next door. Though you weren't supposed to be loud, small conversations for teaching were fine, making it a user-friendly place with quite a few regulars. During this time of year, just after the start of the new school term, the study rooms weren't crowded. Before exams, it would get so busy that finding a seat was a challenge. Exam season. I felt a pang of nostalgia. Back in college, I once tutored a middle school girl. It was only a few sessions, but I remember how fun it felt, like being a teacher. While she worked on problems, I mostly saw the top of her head since she was hunched over her notebook. I remember how amusing it was to see her tearful face when she couldn't solve something, and her bright smile when she succeeded. She kind of reminds me of that girl today. The woman's name was Sarah. The expression on her face as she made those decorative flowers reminded me of that middle school girl. Her petite stature was also similar. Feeling nostalgic, I forgot about reading and sat idly, reminiscing in a corner of the community center. I'm not sure how long I was lost in thought. The door opened, and a familiar figure in a uniform hurried in. "Sarah?" When I called out, she looked around and smiled when she found me. Her quickly changing expressions were charming. We moved to the study room for group learning, and she bowed slightly. "Nice to meet you again. I'm Sarah. Thank you for helping me." I nodded with a smile as she opened her laptop and pulled out a stack of reference books from her bag. I had picked out some books in the library, but they didn't seem necessary. "You're really working hard on your own." She looked troubled at this. "Self-study has its limits. I thought it would be like this. There are many programming languages in the world. Broadly speaking, they can be divided into two categories: compiled languages and scripting languages. Compiled languages execute programs faster but are more complex. You could say they're machine-friendly. In contrast, scripting languages are easier for people to understand but aren't as fast." Since she primarily used scripting languages, the compiled language used by our company's IT department was completely unfamiliar to her. I feel so pathetic. I was so excited about this transfer to the headquarters. "But it's like going to France with just a basic A1 level DLF certificate," she said. I almost laughed at the analogy. But I responded, "No, scripting languages are respectable programming languages. It's not like having an DLF certificate. It's more like being fluent in Japanese or Chinese but struggling in France." When I gave this comparison, Sarah laughed. "Still, you're amazing, Sarah. I heard you improved the efficiency of the main system at the factory with a scripting language. And that system got adopted at other factories too." As I said this, she furrowed her brows. "Did I tell you the details of why I was transferred to the headquarters?" Her question made me a bit nervous. "Oh? No, I just guessed that since you transferred from a branch to the headquarters IT department, you must have done something impressive." My awkward response only made her more suspicious. Panicking, I reached for her reference book. "Well, let's get started. Where are you stuck?" She still looked skeptical but shifted her focus to the book. She had reference books ranging from beginner to advanced levels, but she had already mastered the basics on her own. She seemed to be stuck somewhere in the intermediate section, so I began to help her with the troublesome parts. So like this?" When she typed on the keyboard, the program ran as expected. "Exactly." I snapped my fingers in excitement. "All right. Let's move on to the next." Just as I was about to move on to the next section, she touched my hand. I looked at her in surprise, and she was wide-eyed. "I haven't asked your name yet." Startled by her sudden question, I became flustered. "Oh, me? I'm John. Nice to meet you." Before I could continue, she shook her head vigorously. Seeing my confusion, she whispered softly, "John Michaels, right?" I was taken aback as she said this, my eyes widening in response. She looked at me with teary eyes. You once helped me with my studies here." The moment she said that, I vividly recalled the middle school girl I had been thinking about earlier. When I was in college, I was almost about to graduate and was preparing for my next step. It was a path I didn't want to take. I had always wanted to be a teacher. However, due to family circumstances, my future was already decided. Sighing, I was absent-mindedly reading a book with the necessary knowledge for my future job in the study room. Then, I heard the sound of someone sniffling next to me. Being allergic myself, I thought it might be allergies, but it seemed different. Pretending to go to the restroom, I peeked and saw a girl in a uniform slumped over her desk. "What's wrong?" I was surprised but spoke to her softly. She slowly lifted her head and turned a tear-streaked face toward me. Her expression was so distraught that I couldn't laugh. "I don't get it." There was a math workbook open on the desk. It seemed she was preparing for her high school entrance exams. My mouth moved on its own. "Would you like me to help?" She widened her tear-filled eyes. "Eh?" I scratched my head. "If you want, I can teach you. I think I can handle middle school math." She made a very skeptical face. "Does that mean this is so simple for you? Is math going to get even harder?" I laughed at her worrying about the future when she was struggling with the present problem. "Let's start with solving this problem first." But she hesitated. "But, you came here to study too, right?" "I don't want to take up your time." I chuckled at being considered by a middle schooler. "It's fine. I can do this anytime. You seem to need help right now." At my words, she nodded so quickly it made me laugh again. "After that, you helped me a few more times, and I managed to pass my exams and even went into a science path." I connected the face of the middle school girl I remembered with Sarah's face now. Indeed, they were the same person. "Even with your mask on, there was something familiar about you." It was an unforgettable memory for me. The way you snapped your fingers when I understood something that confirmed it for me. As she smiled gently, my face grew warm. "But, how did you know my name? We didn't exchange names back then, did we?" She laughed softly. "And then? Let's step outside for a moment. It's hard to concentrate on studying now." We were the only ones in the study room. But she was right, it didn't feel like the right atmosphere for studying anymore. We moved to the park next to the community center and sat on a bench. The breeze felt pleasant. "As for how I knew your name, don't think I'm weird, okay? Back then, the book you had with you had your name on it. I memorized it and later wrote it down in my notebook. John Michaels." Hearing her formally say my name made my heart skip a beat. "I always wanted to thank you. After our last meeting before my exams, I never saw you again. Even after I entered high school and then college. I occasionally came to this community center hoping to see you, but we never crossed paths. So, thank you very much for back then." Her deep gratitude made me flustered. "Oh no, I'm just glad you passed. Sorry for disappearing. After that, I got a job overseas." She nodded quietly at my explanation. "Sorry if this is presumptuous, but the name Michaels, that's the same as our company's CEO's surname, could it be?" Seeing her struggle to ask, I decided to come clean. "Yes, I'm the next in line to be CEO." She gasped a little but then smiled warmly. I knew it. All my hard work wasn't in vain. I didn't understand what she meant and looked puzzled. I was surprised to hear the name Michaels at the induction ceremony. It's not a common name. So I thought it must be related to the person who helped me at the library. I was assigned to a branch factory. But I always wanted to meet you again in work at the headquarters someday. It may seem trivial, but that was my motivation. My heart was pounding loudly. But no matter how much I checked the company newsletter or executive lists, I couldn't find your name. I scratched my head at her words. "I'm still just an employee." I wanted it that way. Sarah tilted her head in confusion. "But, you knew about why I got transferred to the headquarters because you're the next CEO, right?" I nodded. "Yeah, I saw your work. It was impressive. It's a bit embarrassing to know you did all that to meet me again." I laughed lightly. "And I've come this far, encouraged by your words." She tilted her head further, frowning slightly. Her puzzled expression made me laugh again. When I was in college, teaching middle school Sarah math, I was also feeling uncertain about my own future. My grandfather had forged his own path, and my father was merely following in his footsteps. I wondered if I was destined to follow the same path as my father. One day, I couldn't help but ask her, "What do you think about a life where you just follow the path laid out for you?" She looked puzzled at the question. Of course, she would. She was still a middle schooler, after all. I felt foolish for asking such a question to a child. Sorry, never mind. Forget I asked. I tried to brush it off. But then she said, just riding on a track could be boring, but... I leaned forward, curious about what she'd say next. If you're the one driving, it can be fun. Her unexpected words made me ask further. Even if you can't choose the destination yourself? She pondered for a moment before smiling. But you can choose how fast you go and when you arrive, right? You can change that as much as you want. It felt like a light shone on me. And someday, you might be able to stop the train and add more tracks yourself, right? I had never thought of it that way. Because I'm starting to like math thanks to you. I thought I'd never be able to handle science, but this feels like adding more tracks, right? Her bright smile almost brought me to tears. Yes, even if you're on a predetermined path, you can still drive it yourself. The final destination is set as CEO. However, I can choose the journey. With that realization, I negotiated with my father, the CEO, and my grandfather, the chairman, to train at a new factory we were establishing in Southeast Asia. Not only did I intend to train, but I also aimed to make that new factory one of the top factories in our company. And so, 12 years later, I returned to the States, having achieved top levels of production and quality at the Southeast Asia factory. Hearing my story, Sarah blushed deeply. Middle school me, how embarrassing. Did I really say that? I chuckled. Don't call it embarrassing. Those words have been precious to me. When I said that jokingly, she looked startled. Oh, right, I'm sorry. She bowed slightly, and I thought she was such a good person. Without thinking, the words slipped out. I think I like you, Sarah. It had only been a few minutes since we reunited. I had no idea what I was saying. She looked just as shocked. What? I carefully chose my words. We haven't seen each other in a long time, but we met before. You were so earnest and adorable as a middle schooler, and now, seeing you work so hard to decorate a sign and study programming even when you don't have a job to do. Oh, sorry. I didn't even ask if you have a boyfriend. I spoke quickly, feeling a bit embarrassed. I don't have a boyfriend, but what about you, John? Do you have someone? You seem quite experienced with women. I was surprised and shook my head. What? No way. I didn't even have a girlfriend while I was working overseas. Admitting this made me feel a bit pathetic, but it was the truth. But, do you normally confess so quickly? She gave me a skeptical look, and I scratched my head. Honestly, I'm surprised myself. I might be getting carried away. I just never thought I'd see you again. The girl who was nearly in tears while I taught her. At my words, she pouted. That nearly in tears part is unnecessary. She pursed her lips but glanced at me. I've never been able to forget you either. I wanted to see you again, but you're the next CEO, right? And I'm just... Before she could finish, I interjected softly. Please don't call me that. She looked at me, eyes wide in surprise. I'm running on a predetermined track, but I'm doing it as an employee by my own choice. While my end goal is to become CEO. I want to experience love and interactions as a regular person, not as the CEO. I don't want you to be fixated on my title as CEO. I want you to see me for who I am. Hearing this, she apologized again. I'm sorry. I just thought someone like me wouldn't be enough, but I've always had feelings for you, the person who kindly taught me math. So I'm happy. Yes. She remembered me and kept striving. I hesitantly spread my arms. So, can we be together? She blushed slightly but stepped into my arms. Yes. I always wanted to see you again. Thank you for making math fun back then. With her in my arms, I thanked her too. Thank you. I actually wanted to be a teacher. For that short time, I got to be a teacher and have a lovely student, which made me happy. As I hugged her tightly, she chuckled. I still need you to teach me about programming languages. She looked up at me and said, Teacher, I'm counting on you. I couldn't help but hug her even tighter. 1 month later, I introduced Sarah to my family. She thought it was too soon, but there was no choice. An arranged marriage had been planned for me. My retired grandfather had arranged it immediately after my return, and I nearly fainted when my mother told me. We're not deeply involved yet. But I'm sure of one thing. I will marry Sarah. In just 1 month, I've grown to love her more and more. She's already become irreplaceable to me. But my grandfather is intimidating. Honestly, he's quite scary. Still, I have my own will. Sarah, completely tense, is sitting next to me. I will protect her and stand by my own resolve. With that determination, I faced my father and grandfather. I don't approve it. My grandfather's first words were blunt. The woman I've chosen for you is from a distinguished family. An ordinary girl doesn't match up. I'll find someone suitable to support you. I looked straight ahead. I don't want to marry someone just because we're a good match. I don't need someone to support me. I want to marry someone we can mutually respect. My grandfather snorted. Respect? Then tell me 100 things you respect about this girl. I widened my eyes and looked at Sarah. Well, she's kind, hardworking, her crying face, her determination to create work where there is none. I continued listing what I respected about her. At some point, Sarah flinched, but I ignored it and kept going. My grandfather's eyes widened, and he eventually stopped me. That's enough. Enough. I don't want to hear it anymore. He frowned, but my father was trying to hold back his laughter. I smiled wryly. When I was in college, I was still uncertain. I thought about running away from this house and the future of becoming the next president many times. My words made my grandfather's eyes widen. But, during those times, Sarah's words saved me. Even if you're on a set path, you can steer it with your own will. As she said, I went to a factory in Southeast Asia and learned how to manage the factory, how to communicate, the basics of management, investment in equipment. I learned a lot and have been running towards becoming the president in my own way. Without meeting her, even if I didn't run away, I think I would have spent my days idly. For some reason, Sarah's eyes widened at my words. That's not true. Even without my words, you would have realized something and worked hard on your own. My words were just a trigger. She spoke passionately and then took a deep breath. But I also want to stay with you, who always looks forward no matter the situation. I don't just want to support you. I want to run on the track together with you. Looking directly at my grandfather, Sarah appeared divine. My grandfather was silent for a while but then suddenly stood up and left the room. When Sarah and I exchanged glances, my father smiled wryly. He probably sensed your growth. I did too. His unexpected words made my eyes widen. The arranged marriage talks haven't progressed at all, so I'll put a stop to them. I married your mother through an arranged marriage. And we're happy. His words made me a little flustered. No, it's not that arranged marriages are bad. As I panicked, my father laughed. I know. But, you seem to be using me as a cautionary example. Please, also see the good points? Hearing that, I felt a bit ashamed of myself. My father is a gentle and kind person who runs straight on the track laid out for him without complaint. Now, I understand how difficult that life was and how much he had to suppress himself. I respect you for disciplining yourself and running straight on the track. It was embarrassing, and I couldn't look him in the eye when I said it, but he smiled gently. And then, a few years later, Sarah and I got married. At the same time, I took over as CEO. For a while, my father will serve as chairman and support me. After consulting with him, I began to focus on the personnel restructuring that had been in progress for several years. When I returned to the US and toured the office, I noticed a stark difference between departments that were overworked and those that were relaxed. I decided to allocate more staff to the overworked departments to give them some breathing room. By doing this, I believe job satisfaction and interpersonal harmony will improve. I also want to ensure that new employees, like Sarah once was, aren't left overwhelmed and neglected. Although I wanted to enjoy newlywed life for a while, Sarah soon became pregnant. It's a boy. I felt a bit of a dark cloud. This child already has a predetermined path. How will he feel about such a life? Will he think he shouldn't have been born? Sensing my anxiety, Sarah sat next to me. It'll be okay. He will find his own answers. Besides, there's no need to insist on hereditary succession, right? She was right. My grandfather would disagree, but in today's world, we need to be flexible to keep up with the times. For now, my priority is to make it easier and more fulfilling for our employees to work. And to ensure that Sarah and our child are happy. I want to run on this track with all my might in my own way.